Mayor, we have a very important report this evening. We're going to go ahead and do the official oath of office for the mayor and council members Patrick Duffy, Ken Remley, and Alyson Cline. So if you wouldn't mind raising your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name for the record. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend them against all enemies whatsoever, that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the position of. Go ahead and state your position.
Mayor, Councilmember District 3. Councilmember District 4. Councilmember District 2.
And hereby attest to abide by all official ordinances, policies, and procedures of the city of Surprise, according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations to all of you.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Grand Failure Beyond the Streets.
Welcome back to the Grand Failure Beyond the Streets podcast, where we dive deep into the issues affecting our community and hold our public officials accountable. I'm your host, Rebekah Massie. Today, we're exploring a troubling pattern of behavior from Councilwoman Alyson Cline. And no, I mean, in addition to the signs that she tore down, recently some video evidence has surfaced showing that she has been using city resources to campaign and influence the upcoming election. Before we dive into today's topic, let's quickly recap our last episode. Last time, we covered the intense incident now known as Signgate 2024, where Councilwoman Cline was caught on camera by me, admitting to the removal of campaign nomination petition signs and signs for the traffic petition that I started in late November of last year. Which, honestly, looking around the city and looking around social media, this has been sparking some quite heated conversations and raising a great deal of legal questions, and rightfully so. If you've missed that episode, be sure to check it out for all of the details on this ongoing controversy. All right, so now that I've recapped the last episode here, I'd like to go ahead and jump straight into the allegations at hand against Councilwoman Cline. After summarizing these claims about her recent behavioral patterns, we'll break them down into specific incidents that took place, legal implications, learn what local residents have been saying, what the fallout looks like for this mess, and where we can go from here to move forward as a community, all before we wrap things up today. All right, so here goes. Currently, District 2 Councilwoman Alyson Cline is under fire for not only the sign removal that we spoke at length about last episode, but now she also has allegations against her for using city resources and tax dollars to campaign and influence our local elections, leveraging her position to obtain special privileges that she wouldn't be entitled to or would have been treated differently if she did not currently hold the public office that she does, and leveraging these to her advantage for her campaign as she's vying for the mayoral seat in our city. And overall, she's generally just behaving in manners that generate or should generate great concern about conflicts of interest, all of which are not only against the oath that she swore to uphold when taking office, but also illegal based on the Arizona state statutes. Again, I'm going to break all this down throughout the episode, so let's go ahead and continue with the specific incidents. Now, without further ado, I'd like to jump into the timeline of the events and the occurrences where Cline has been seen on these multiple occasions taking advantage of city events, her council position, constituent meetings, and even more incidents that have led to the allegations that I just went over a moment ago. These are all included as well in the report that's been generated by a law firm whose name is Pierce Coleman, PLLC, which was hired by Robert Wingo. For those of you who don't know who Robert Wingo is, he's the Surprise city attorney. And this outside counsel was hired to complete a thorough investigation into the allegations against Cline. And don't worry, I'll be sure as usual to link the sources for this, including the entire report that Pierce Coleman generated and completed under this episode's information on the grandfailure.org website, specifically the podcast section. That way you have the ability to read it at your own convenience. All right, I've decided it's best to honestly work through these in a chronological manner, so let me go ahead and go back to the beginning. The first incident that Allie Cline is under fire for took place in the fall of last year. There were actually 2 instances in the fall. One was on October the 11th. The other was on November the 8th. Both of them were after the Veterans Disability and Human Services Commission, after their meeting. Now, this commission, like most of our commissions, meets within the confines of council chambers. After these meetings, Cline was actually witnessed requesting commission members to sign her nomination petition. This is really important because not only is this on city property, in city council chambers, right? But Cline actually, as of the time of this recording, based on the city website, she serves as the chair on the City of Surprises Boards and Commissions Selection Committee, meaning that how this could have been perceived by the commissioners is that their boss was telling them to sign her nomination petition for the mayoral race. And when presented with the fact that really the whistleblower or one particular commissioner in regards to all of this, they declined to sign the first time on October the 11th, but then signed it the second time. Now, I have not spoken to this person. There wasn't really any information specifically about their interview with outside counsel, but to me, in my humble opinion, it shows that there was some sort of perceived pressure that was put on these commissioners, because if you say no thanks the first time and then 4 weeks later you're approached again to sign it, knowing that this is sort of indirectly your boss, I mean, really, what option do you have, especially when you factor in that boards and commissions actually serve at the behest of the council and they can vote to remove members at will. All right, now the second incident that was brought before the outside council took place on December the 10th. On December the 10th, Allie Cline was once again witnessed attempting to capture signatures. She was wearing a city-issued polo at a charity softball game, and this was a softball game between the Surprise Police Department and the Surprise Fire Department while she was out, once again, like I said, gathering signatures for her nomination petition to make it onto the ballot. You may say that that's minimal. Again, we're going to break these down later, but that's the second, or I guess third incident if you count the 2 commission meetings, right? The next allegation, there's a small little lull in between December, and then we go to March the 15th. This next allegation stems from a district meeting that took place on March the 15th. If anybody's unfamiliar, city council members in Surprise regularly host meetings with their constituents. Typically, it's on a monthly basis, and these are meant to discuss certain topics, updates, events, etc., all within the city, or if there's something specific going on in the district. At this March 15th meeting, Cline was witnessed towards the end of this meeting answering that she was indeed running for mayor, and she was already on the ballot. Research actually shows that she had just filed her initial paperwork earlier that week on March the 12th. So literally, she's been considered ready to go and being on the ballot for 3 days. So she let them know, hey, I'm on the ballot. But what follows is really the more concerning part. Councilwoman Cline follows up explaining that she's on the ballot by exclaiming into her microphone, vote for Allie, vote for Allie, vote for Allie, over and over again.
Vote for Allie, vote for Allie, vote for Allie.
And she does this in sort of a jazz hands-like gesture. For anybody who's familiar with that reference, it's unclear what her intentions were, but regardless, she's making statements unequivocally telling people to vote for her. The next item in chronological order is the issue of her pulling down the signs. Since I've already dedicated an entire episode to that, I'm not going to go through all the details again. This would be where I recommend that you pause this episode and go back and listen to my last episode entitled Signgate 2024, if you haven't already done so, and save yourself the question whether the signs were legal or not, and just know that at the end of the day, I did have permission from our city manager, Mr. Bob Wingenroth.
I just found out what happened to your signs. It was either, and I don't know specifically, a contractor that we have at our park cleaning the park, or staff that work, the maintenance staff at the park. So they took them down, and I want to apologize for that because it was not our intent to take those signs down. And what I wanted to see, one of two things, if you wanted to get more, print more, I will pay for them personally, and I'll get them put up where you had them.
So regardless, Cline was in the wrong here. She shouldn't have taken down the signs. And for those of you who have also seen the news, that was put out by the Surprise Police Department, as well as the City of Surprise government page. And then I've also shared it on the Grand Failures Facebook page. The long and short of it is that the county attorney has decided for right now not to press charges. I'm unhappy with it. I know some other people are unhappy with it. I am currently reviewing options to see if anything can be done, simply because this sets a very dangerous precedent for our elections. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to go ahead and move forward to the next incident. Fast forward to April 26th at another District 2 meeting, again, that is supposed to be dedicated to what's going on as it pertains to our council seat. Cline once again talks about how she's on the ballot. She does this time also follow up with the whole vote for Ally shtick.
Vote for Ally, vote for Ally.
And this is after explaining how to change addresses for some of her part-time residents. And by that, I mean the snowbirds, which is a whole other issue, as these folks are supposed to be registered in the state where they primarily reside. But anyways, I would normally think that that's relatively innocuous, but later Cline goes on to make a statement as she's wrapping up this little explanation of how to change your address and whatnot. And the statement that she makes is along the lines of, vote early, vote often is what they say.
Vote early, vote often is what they say in Chicago.
So you can see why I'm a little concerned, perturbed, whatever phrase or descriptor you want to put on that, right? Now, during this same meeting, before all of these talks, she also does address the fact that she is running, but she is no longer running unopposed. And she speaks about Mr. Kevin Sartor, who at that time on April the 26th, he was the only other individual who was on the ballot and also had declared their candidacy and intent to run for mayor. She speaks about his background, but she is very inaccurate about his experience. She talks about his current job, which she is also inaccurate about. And she goes on to talk and honestly, I feel like plants some concerns in her constituents' mind about how Kevin is not going to be quitting his full-time job to be mayor.
Kevin's background in, you can look up the details, but Kevin is a 20-year military person. He recently retired from the military. Not sure whether it was Army Reserves or not, but I believe that's what he was in. He is currently a full-time employee of the DISTAR Identified School District as a safety management person working on school safety, which is something that's really important to them. My viewpoint is you need a full-time mayor, but that's just my view, because he's not planning to retire to quit his other job. I believe that to be true, but I'm going to ask him that question if I'm given that opportunity. So he did a 4-month fellowship at the City of Surprise, working on the 2040 plan. So he knows a little bit about what goes on in the city, and decided to jump straight into mayor without going through city council. And I can't tell you anything too much about him without sounding like I'm better, but I'm better.
And something that you should know about is that earlier this year, myself and a member of the PAC, Voice of Surprise, And the member of that pack was Quintus Schultzka. Quintus and I met with the city manager, Bob Wingenroth, and also the assistant city manager, Tracy Montgomery. During that meeting, we spoke about the time commitment for mayor, and they both stated it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 30 hours typically, which would mean that you don't necessarily have to quit your existing day job to serve in city government, especially in the role of mayor. Cline also during this time continues to campaign and talking down, or really, in my opinion, disparaging her opponent. She goes on to refer to herself as the, quote, better candidate, unquote, and then acknowledges after both of these instances during her April 26th meeting, so both the vote for Ally, snowbirds type stuff, and the disparaging Mr. Sartor, talks about how she's not trying to break the rules,
Over Ally. Oh, okay, I'm not allowed to say that.
which in a legal sense indicates intent, that she intentionally spoke about these things, right? Number one. And then number two, knowledge that this is not acceptable behavior. Now, the final incident that the outside counsel reviewed is the online mayoral debate that was put on by the Northwest Valley Chamber of Commerce. And this is where she is once again wearing a city-issued polo shirt and campaigning, or at least advertising herself as a mayoral candidate when she was invited to this debate, or they called it a forum, but it's more or less the same thing. I understand the difference on a technical level, but most people are familiar with the term debate when two or more candidates are answering questions, and really the forum format is how they run presidential debates anyhow. Now, I'm going to break all of this down as far as the legal impacts, the findings, my interpretations, my research, etc., on the next segment. However, for the sake of time, the next segment is actually going to be in the next episode. I'm breaking this "You Took an Oath" up into two parts. So this is part one. Part two is going to have the breakdown of everything. And it's important to know that the legal impacts and the findings that Pierce Coleman found and wrote a report on was also presented before City Council on June the 18th. So again, I'm just breaking this up for the sake of time. I don't want everything to get too terribly long, but it is definitely safe to say that you're not going to want to miss part two. So for now, that's a wrap on this fifth installment of the Grand Failure Beyond the Streets podcast. Please tune in for part two of this episode, which will aptly be titled "You Took an Oath, Part 2. This is your host, Rebekah Massie, signing off for now. See you real soon for part two. Bye.
You're listening to The Grand Failure Beyond the Streets, a podcast about the ongoing public safety crisis in Surprise, Arizona.
The Grand Failure podcast is hosted, edited, and produced by Rebekah Massie. Jonathan Perry is credited with the voiceover and announcement work. I'd like to thank Spotify for podcasters as the hosting and distribution platform, and the folks over at Audacity with the open source software that made the production and editing of this podcast possible. Any graphics, logos, or artwork used to promote or identify the podcast was created by Rebekah Massie using the Canva software. Sound effects and music provided courtesy of freesound.org, a website that offers royalty-free Community Commons licenses for a variety of sound bites, songs, and effects. I'd like to take a quick moment to give a shout out to local reporters Jason Stone with the Surprise Independent and Sean Raimundo with the Arizona Republic for writing and publishing news articles on this ongoing situation within the Surprise community. Any sources, news articles, or other information will be listed and linked on the webpage dedicated to the Grand Failure podcast on thegrandfailure.org. That's thegrandfailure.org. I'd also like to thank a local political action committee in the area, or PAC, by the name of Voice of Surprise, for their partnership in my efforts on this podcast, as well as give a quick shout out and thank you to my husband, Brian Massie, who has graciously put up with all my work on this endeavor. Thank you so much for your time, and all of the podcast credits, details, and information can once again be found on the website, thegrandfailure.org.